We have been told the lie over and over and over again that in order to be successful, in order to show up for yourself, in order to meet your goals, you need to be consistent, and that what consistency looks like is doing the same thing every single day. And often when people talk about, consistency and habits and productivity, they also talk about doing extremely high energy, time consuming things. Is there some validity to, having a routine, having habits? Yes, of course. I'm not here to preach against that, but what I am here to talk about is just how we can reframe habits, how we can reframe the concept of consistency to not meaning doing the same thing every day, and also just remove some of the shame that comes along with consistency. Because I think that often we can feel like everyone else has their life together. Everyone else is able to just be consistent, do the goals, get the money, do all the things. And that we are the only people that are not advancing in that direction, that we are the people that are just, we're being left behind. We feel lazy. We feel like we're not enough. And we get into this shame cycle. And that is obviously not going to do anyone any favors. So that is what we are going to chat about today. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Victoria Harder. I'm the host of Hot Mess Habits, which is this podcast, this YouTube channel that you are listening to. Thank you so much for being here. It is what day? October? No, it's not October yet. It is the end of September. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who has supported the launch of this new venture so far. I feel like I'm so thankful. This has been just such a fun creative venture for me. I also just feel like this is what I'm meant to talk about on the internet right now. So it feels very just happy and aligned, and yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling thankful. I also wanted to say that if you do leave me a review on Spotify and Apple. Spotify or Apple is the two places you can leave reviews. If you leave me a written review, I'm going to be doing a little giveaway for the month of October. So at the end of October, I'm going to pick two winners, and I'll read them out loud here as the reviews. And then you'll win a $50 Amazon or Starbucks card. You can choose which one. Anyways, that's a little, podcast update. Because of the podcast launch, I feel like the month of October is oh my goodness. See, I think it's October already. The month of September is flying by. I'm in full on fall mode over here. As you can see, I'm normally an iced coffee girl, but I'm drinking a hot coffee today. But we're going to jump into the podcast, chatting all things consistency today. I'm trying something new today. The last two videos and episodes that I did were a little bit more scripted. I planned them out a little bit more, and today I want to give myself a little bit more creative freedom and just kind of see where things go. If I can kind of talk off script in the sense of just, I have my concept planned out and kind of a couple key points, but overall I want to just talk a little bit more freely and see how things go. So if you're listening to this on the internet, it means that this made the cut and we're ready to go. So again, if you're watching on video, I'm going to stop. This is the last time that I will address this, I promise, but I am going to try to look at the camera more. I think that I have, as you may know, I have ADHD, and I think that it's just it's so much more fun for me to just look around rather than look directly into the camera. But we're going to try that today and see if I can be a little bit more focused. My goal for you today is that you would leave this episode feeling like you have a fresh perspective, or maybe some thoughts around the topic of consistency, and that you would feel more excited to pursue your goals, more looking at things from a more long-term perspective rather than taking this approach of, I'm going to change my life in 2 weeks, because as we know, that doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, we need to come up with a plan of what we're going to do. So I wanted to start by bringing in another resource for you. So this is something that my husband has been a faithful listener so far, and has also helped me a little bit with some editing and audio and video stuff. And so one thing he was like, oh, you should talk about maybe bring in some quotes or talk about some resources that you like. So that today I want to talk about Atomic Habits. If you have not read the book Atomic Habits, it's by James Clear. This is what it looks like. I feel like most people have seen this book. I feel like it's very aesthetic. It got really popular. I feel like a lot of people bought it, but I don't know how many people read it or not. But I honestly feel like this book was written for the girlies with ADHD. I have read so many productivity books, so many products, listened to so many podcasts and advice from people, as I've talked about before. And this book, I feel like, is the only one that I felt like was actually attainable. When I first got this, I was kind of like, oh, I'm like, I ordered this instantly because I'm like, oh, this sounds amazing, like whatever. But then I was like, oh, okay, this is just going to be, it's going to be the same old, same old. It's going to make me feel kind of bad about myself. It's going to be like, but then also inspiring. And then I'm going to, try to do some of the tactics and then they're not going to work. What I was pleasantly surprised by is that this book actually gave me resources and gave me inspiration in a fresh new way. This kind of like honestly inspired my, like this journey that I'm on right now, of figuring out ways to be productive as a type B girly. So I want to read to you a quote from this book. And this is a quote that's going to go right along with what we're talking about today about consistency. So I'll read it for you here. So the title of this is called, or the subtitle is, Why Small Habits Make a Big Difference. It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. Too often, we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. Whether it's losing weight, building a business, writing a book, winning a championship, or achieving any other goal, we put pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Okay, guys, this is what I want you to listen to right here, okay? If you tuned out the rest of what I said, listen to this section right here, okay? Here's how the math works out. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse for each day over 1 year, you'll decline down to 0. What starts as a small win or minor setback accumulates into something much more. Okay, so if you haven't read this book, it goes on, it breaks this down, but we're going to focus, I wanted to focus on that concept of the 1%. Because this is what really, that really sunk in for me when I heard that, because so often we make these big plans, these grand sweeping statements, these huge goals for our life. And I don't think that we should stop doing that, because that's part of our personality. That is part of who we are, and I think that's part of just being human. It's we want to be better. We want to achieve more. We want to have success. We want all of these things. However, what we need to realize is that these are not going to be overnight changes, and things are not going to happen overnight. Things are not going to happen over 2 weeks. They're going to happen over years of us continually focusing on that 1% better. I find that when I have a more concrete example, it helps me to be able to be like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. So we're going to talk about this in a concrete example type of way, in this concept of 1% and being consistent. So I know that in this book, James Clear is talking about habits, and just improving your habits by 1%. But today I'm going to talk about just being consistent. And so, because I think these two things go hand in hand. So for my practical example, I'm going to talk about going to the gym. Okay. Because I feel like that is such a common, often a lot of goals and productivity and stuff is health related as well. So let's talk about going to the gym. So what often will happen is we will say something like, okay, I want to be a gym girly. I want to be someone who goes to the gym. I want to be strong. I want to get fit. And what we'll do is we'll say, I am going to start going to the gym, and I'm going to go to the gym every day, because I don't want to be a person that only goes to the gym twice a week. I want to be a person that goes to the gym 7 days a week or 5 days a week. I don't want to do things halfway. And so what happens is, we will start going to the gym, and we'll go to the gym for all week. We'll go to the gym Monday to Friday. 1 week, we'll go to the gym again the next week. And so, that's 2 weeks of us going consistently to the gym. We're feeling good. We're like, oh, I can do this. I'm a gym girly. I'm finally achieving my goals. I'm finally changing my life. Look at where I am. Then what happens is, on day 15 of going to the gym every day, you have the worst day at work. You get some feedback from your boss that's not the best. And then you come home and you have a couple texts from your friends that are unread. And then they text you again and are like, I'm annoyed that you're not responding to me. And then you get your period. and you're like, oh, there is no way that I'm going to the gym tomorrow. Like, I can't. And you don't go to the gym. But then you're like, okay, I'm going to go the next day or whatever. I'm going to go the next day. And then that day you end up sleeping through your alarm. And then that's 2 days where you haven't gone to the gym. And what happens is we will crumble because we're like, I'm not being consistent. Like I said I was going to do this. I said I was going to go to the gym every day. And now I've missed 2 days. And then those 2 days kind of snowball. And now it's been 2 weeks since you've been to the gym. And you're like, okay, well now it's like, it's almost embarrassing for me to go back to the gym. Like, what's the point? Like, I clearly just can't. I'm just not a person who can do this. Like, I'm not a person who can go to the gym. I'm not a person who can stick to their habits. And so when we're talking about this concept of 1% and reframing the concept of consistency, what we need to look at is we need to look at going to the gym as a long-term thing. This is not just like I'm going to change my life in 30 days. This is I want to change my life for the longevity of my life. I want to change my habits because over the next 30 years, I want to be strong. We need to zoom out a little bit and look at things from a wider perspective. So say last year, I did not go to the gym. I was not a gym girly. I was not showing up for myself in that way. So I went to the gym 0 times. Okay. So for me, honestly, a win would be like, if I went to the gym once a week, I'd go from going to the gym 0 to going to the gym 52 times. Like, is the 52 better than the 0? Of course. Is going to the gym once a week, like, is that something? Of course. So that's the way that we need to think about things, is like from a little bit wider perspective, a little bit just beyond the scope of the next 2 weeks of our life. Oh, out of the, I want to go to the gym 200 out of the 365 days of the year, or I want to go to the gym like 10 times a month, 15 times a month. And, some weeks, the first 2 weeks of the month, I'm feeling great. So I'm going to go Monday through Friday. And then at the end of the month, I don't really feel as great. Like that's when I kind of, work gets busy. I get my period, things slow down. So I'm going to go just on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm going to take Thursday, Friday off, or like whatever that looks like. And then what we need to do. So that's the first thing, is just thinking about things like from a little bit zoomed out, a little bit more on the long term, a little bit less on the like, okay, everything needs to change in the next 2 weeks. We're going to focus on that, that 1%, those small changes that make a difference. So next we want to talk. So we talked about the 1%, reframing consistency, thinking about things in a little bit of a longer perspective. And then the next thing that we want to talk about is just being ready for that. So I know that this is something that you probably do not want to hear, okay? Because I resisted this for so long. And I want to be able to feel like I can do all the things. And I feel like I will sometimes listen, like my guilty pleasure is listening to people like, like Gary V, or like people like that, where like they're going to kind of yell at me and tell me like, you can do this, like you're going to do this, whatever. Because it is motivational. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, this is motivational. I can do this. I need to like, take some action. However, what I need to prepare for, and what you need to prepare for, is when you're thinking about consistency, when you're thinking about habits, routines, trying to do it all, you need to be prepared that you're going to fail. And that is the hardest part, because I know already you're like, no, this time it's going to be different. Like this time is going to be the time it's going to be different. But if you do not have the mindset of like being okay with there being some failure, being okay with you not making the right choices all the time, you will not move forward. Like you will not only fail, you will not be able to get yourself back up. And the more that you can prepare yourself for the mental side of it and be okay with experiencing a little bit of that, maybe you're experiencing a little bit of that shame. You're feeling like, oh, why can I not do this? Why is everyone else able to do this and not me? If you're not prepared for that and prepared for those feelings, you can really kind of sink into them and just not get out. And just kind of, I feel like that's when you get into these, like for myself, this is when I get into kind of like really anxious episodes or really depressive episodes, because it's like, okay, why can everyone else do this except me? Right? So the more that you can be aware of that's coming, and okay, what are some tools and strategies for me to get out of that and be okay with that? the more you're able to continue on and to continue on the path to meet those goals. So this is like, again, if we're thinking about things in like the 1% thing, you know, it's only 1% and it works both ways, right? That's why it doesn't feel super monumental sometimes, because it's just 1%. So you doing and showing up for yourself one day might not feel like you're doing it all. But then the good thing of that is that if you miss a day, you know, if you have a day where you're off, it's only 1%. Like, you're okay. You're going to be fine. Just don't get stuck in that. Don't keep going down that trajectory. Be like, okay, yeah, this is fine. I knew I was going to have a day like this. I know that I'm still like, I'm not a failure because I had a day where I didn't do perfect, and we're going to move forward. I know that this is kind of like the mindset thing is hard because it's not, I can't give you like obviously concrete advice other than that you need to be aware of it. And you like, you know yourself, you know, the spirals and the thoughts that are in your head. So, I mean, something for me that's helpful is always journaling. When I journal, I seem to process things a little bit differently than when I talk, because I can like see the thoughts kind of as they're coming out. So sometimes things come out and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't fully know that I was feeling that. So maybe, you know, try journaling things out, talking to a friend. One thing that's been randomly helpful that I was kind of rolled my eyes at the beginning has been tracking my periods. I thought when people started talking about like cycle syncing and stuff, I'm like, oh boy, these are the like what girlies are starting this and like trying to make money off it. And, you know, I'm like a cycle syncing coach. I'm like, okay. However, I will say that when I have tracked my period, I've been able to notice some patterns in terms of like, okay, the few days before I get my period, that is when I feel like everything in my world is crashing down before me. And I feel like I just cannot, I get into this mode of where like I cannot, what's the word? Like I'm frozen. Like I cannot make any decisions. I cannot respond to text messages. I just feel so like, what's the word? Like going internal. I feel like bawling my eyes out. And when I used to get like that, again, this is a kind of similar thing where like when I used to get like that, I was like, something's wrong. What's wrong with me? Like I need to go on medication. Like something's wrong. And then I would get my period the next day and I was like, okay, never mind. We're good. So that's a little thing that if you are, you know, if you haven't done that before, maybe just try that out for even just tracking your mood, can be, you know, interesting, helpful. And then also I feel like having resources available to you that are like, that talk about productivity in a way that isn't shame-based, it's not like girl boss hustle culture vibes, is always a good thing. This episode is sponsored by Bode Goods Co. Bode Goods exists to create beautiful stationery products to help you get your life together. They feature a large array of physical prints that can be shipped right to your home, as well as custom maps, and then a whole library of digital downloads and resources available for the type B ADHD girly. I currently have a collaboration going with Bode Goods, so on the section called Organize, all of those are curated specifically for this channel for the Hot Mess Girlies. So if you go on there, you can view, that's where my digital planner template is from, as well as my desktop background, my productivity little planner that I use every single day. You can buy that as a physical little notepad to have beside your notes, or you can get the digital version if you want to either use it on your iPad or print it out. Thank you so much to Bode Goods for sponsoring this episode. Make sure you check them out, and if you use Hot Mess Habits at checkout, you will get 15% off your first order. Okay, and the last thing that I'll talk about when it comes to consistency and kind of reframing our mindset around it is just looking really closely at what we're tracking when it comes to consistency. So again, for example, one thing that I used to do was like, okay, I consistently want to follow a morning routine. Okay. I want to have the same morning routine. I feel like in my head, I'm like, the concept of having a routine that I do that's the same every single day sounds like a good idea. Like that sounds like something that someone who has their life together would do, is do the same morning routine every day. And then I would try to do it. And for some reason, I'm like, why can I not just do this? Like this feels like a basic, easy concept. And I had to reframe my idea of consistency and say, you know what? For me, to be consistent is to do a morning routine. And I've talked about this. I talked about this kind of on our first episode, but I'm going to talk about it again. So being consistent is for me to have a morning routine. It is not going to look like doing the same thing every single morning, but it is going to look like I'm going to wake up, I'm going to look at my morning menu with my little different morning options, and I'm going to choose something from there. So if I want to track my progress, I want to track my consistency, I'm just going to track the fact of, okay, did I wake up and make an intentional choice? Did I choose something off my morning menu to do for my routine? Great. Like if you are a social media girl and you're like, okay, I need to be consistent. I need to be consistent with my posting. I need to be consistent with what I'm doing. Instead of tracking the metric of, did I post every day this week? Did I post 7 days out of the week? It's like, okay, we're going to get rid of that metric. We're going to say, okay, did every single piece of content that I post feel in line with the direction I want my brand to go? That is a better metric for you to track about being consistent than just doing something for the sake of doing it. We just want to change our reason for tracking things and not just track them for the sake of like trying to make ourselves feel bad or feel like we aren't doing enough. So let's just, as you're looking at consistency, just remember that you don't need to do the same thing every single day to be successful. Focus on that 1%, the 1% better, or, the days that are not so good, it's just 1%. Like just keep moving forward. And then also just reframing, like, why are we tracking things? What's the point? What does consistency actually look like for us? I'll link below the Atomic Habits book. And then I also have a few, I have my Google Calendar resource for you guys, as well as my desktop freebie. So if you want to change your desktop background for October, that is all linked below. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and leave me a review. I'll be doing the review giveaway at the end of October. We'll be drawing the winner. So if you want to leave a review now, that would be amazing. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Let me know in the comments if there's any other types of videos or podcasts or topics, or if you have any questions about anything we talked about today. Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Have a great week, guys.